Hello, everyone. Welcome to Court with Krissy. Thanks to the Child Access Prevention Law, these two parents can now face up to 15 years in prison and or $10,000 in fines. It only cost them the child's life because they couldn't store their firearms. And let me know if what Attorney Byrd goes on and on about infuriates you as much as it does me. I hope you like it. Court with Krissy is now in session.
All right, ma'am, please state your name.
I'll be Heather LeBlanc.
Thank you. All right. People versus Heather LeBlanc, counsel.
Yes, Your Honor. Brandon Byrd on behalf of Heather LeBlanc, my client waives her right to formal reading, was advised her constitutional right, so stand mute.
Thank you, counsel. The court notes formal reading has been waived, enters a not guilty plea on your client's behalf. I'll hear arguments as to bond.
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes,
Hold on, I need to hear from Mr. Byrd and then I'll have some questions for you, officer. Thank you. Okay, Mr. Byrd, go ahead.
thank you, Your Honor. Respectfully, Your Honor, these are always tragic situations.
Let's do this first, appearance and waiver. I don't know if I did that, so go
I
ahead.
apologize. Yes, Your Honor. Brandon Byrd on behalf of Heather LeBlanc, my client waives her right to the formal reading, was advised her constitutional rights, and will stand mute.
Thank you, counsel. The court notes formal reading has been waived and enters a not guilty plea on Ms. LeBlanc's behalf. Now, Mr. Byrd, your argument is to bond.
These are always unfortunate situations, Your Honor. And as of this time, I don't believe anybody feels the pain worse than the people that's going to be than Miss LeBlanc and Mr. Gravel. I don't see him to be a threat to the community, Your Honor. I did get a chance to speak with both of them. Now, just for argument purposes, we're gonna take this. We're gonna take allegations said to be true. But Mr. Gravel states that they live in a bad neighborhood. They live in a bad neighborhood, and unfortunately, what means that some people got to use due to the situation that they're in because of their surroundings to protect the main individuals they love, ends up hurting that individual. My client in front of us, Ms. LeBlanc, she was asleep. She works from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. She was asleep. She was asleep because she had to work. Actually, she was gonna have to be there 20 minutes before this unfortunate incident ever happened. We're dealing with a 28-year-old lifelong resident, Your Honor, not trying to run from this situation. No prior criminal history, not on probation or parole, no pending cases, Your Honor. Now, we were told to be forthcoming with this court. There were two CPS cases. One which wasn't never open. It was because the child wasn't crawling, and it was said that he was in. Somebody said it might have been because he was in bed all the time, but they had got all the paperwork from the doctors, in which that CPS case wasn't never open. Another one, the school called because the child had a bug in his cup, but that was closed the same day after CPS came out, checked their house, and found out that their house was fit to live in. Their house was fit to live in. It was just because the child had his cup outside. So that case was closed right away on the same day. And that's to be forthcoming with the court. We're gonna ask this court for a personal bond. They live their life, work. Well, my client works. My other client's gonna be a stay-at-home father, which we delve into deeper once we get to him. Tried to take care of the child, tried to protect the child, and we have an unfortunate event that happened. They haven't even had a chance to schedule their child's burial in this matter. Um, arrange any funeral arrangements, arrange any burial in this matter, with in which they would like to do. And respectfully, we're going to ask this court for a personal bond, at least for them to fight this outside the confines of the Wayne County Jail. There's no other children in the house. It'd be just them. That was the only child that both of them had, and they're both in grief right and they're both in grief. I understand how unfortunate this situation is, and it is it's assaultive in nature. It's assaultive in nature because of the charge, because of the outcome of a charge like this. But it's not this wasn't intentional. Nothing about this was intentional. Your Honor, my clients never had any allegations of abuse towards their child. They loved their child dearly and was doing everything that they could to protect the child and keep the child's well-being the best. But unfortunately, we have this outcome. So respectfully, we're gonna ask this court for personal bond, Your Honor.
Thank you. Sergeant Brassfield, you've been waiting quite a while on these cases. What do you think I need to know?
Your Honor, obviously the shock factor of this and the horrific nature of this entire incident. This is a reckless thing that reasonable parents should have known. There's a young person around. They have multiple weapons around the house. Was this kid they had access to? And this is why we're here today. Obviously, we have a young child that's now deceased because of this.
Yep, I understand that. Sorry, all of that in the investigator's report I have. Are there any prior criminal issues or capious issues that you think I need to know about, like not appearing for court or anything like that?
No, I'm just requesting a high cash bond, and if you can't do that, then some type of tether, just to make sure, because this is a 15-year felony here, so I don't know.
Okay, thank you. All right. We've got a 5-year-old child who is deceased. And we have a lot of these cases now, parents leaving guns unsecured. In this case, we have both parents having knowledge that there were at least 3 guns in this house, loaded, chambered. In fact, in addition to the one that the 5-year-old is alleged to have pulled from between the mattresses and shot himself with, there was still a chambered shotgun sitting there in the bedroom that he would have had full access to, and a loaded handgun sitting on a computer desk. While people are sleeping or playing video games or whatever they're doing, and leaving a 5-year-old free to wander around the home and access these firearms. Of more concern to the court, or additional concern to the court, are statements in the investigator's report where they've asked the father in particular whether one of the shotgun was loaded, and his response apparently was, "What's the point of having an unloaded gun?" And then stating that the child didn't show much interest in guns, but had shown some interest in the guns, such that when he noticed him taking interest, he would unload them and show them to him. All of this, extremely concerning. Extremely concerning. With Ms. LeBlanc admitting that she knew these firearms were in the home. And yes, she said that the dad was usually the one that dealt with the firearms, but these firearms were in plain view and chambered, except for the one that he pulled from between the mattresses. The other 2 were sitting in plain view and full access to a 5-year-old. Ms. LeBlanc was asleep when this occurred. She did seem to have much less knowledge of the firearm, about the firearms than Dad is alleged to have had, but nonetheless, some knowledge of it. Bond is set for Ms. LeBlanc at $25,000 cash surety. If she's able to make that bond, GPS tether to work only, no contact with any minors, and not to possess or purchase any firearms or other dangerous weapons. The next court date is going to be a probable cause conference, November the 21st at 9 a.m. Preliminary examination, November 27th at 9 a.m. All right, thank you. We'll take Mr. Gravel.
Just permission to speak. One moment, Your Honor.
Yes.
I understand. I completely understand your concerns, and I understand the gravity of this situation. Now, a couple things. I'm not trying to make excuses. I'm just providing some sort of reasoning behind this. Not about to try and make excuses, though, but just trying to provide some sort of reason. When you when my next client comes up, you'll see that he's a bigger man. And when I'm saying that is, and he indicated to me that they live in a horrible neighborhood. What he believed, it wasn't always feasible for him to not have a gun by him during that time, because he might not have been able to get to it. And he's been through some traumatic situations in his life. And I don't believe when he was actually showing his kid the gun, if his kid seen interest, like, oh, look, these guns are cool, when he unloaded it to him, but more educating. And you do got some parents that try and take that approach because they believe that provides some sort of safety to their children if they're educated on the guns, and they have some knowledge about the dangerousness of them. They sit down and teach them what guns are for, and a bunch of things of that nature. So I don't believe he just showed the guns to say, "Oh, these guns are cool. Look, you should have them." Like I said, I'm not saying that is a reasoning. They're working off limited means. Gun safes cost about $300-400, and I know that's not much. I know that's not much to some people. I know that's not much or much.
How many advertisements do we see from local police departments and precincts for free gun safety locks?
I actually,
In response to these cases, it's in response to these cases, giving away free locks so that this doesn't happen. And I understand your argument, but having 3 chambered firearms accessible to a 5-year-old who has shown interest in firearms. I mean, the one that was concealed with the mattresses was the safest as it got in that house. Apparently, according to the investigator's report, the shotgun is just leaned up against the dresser in the bedroom, another handgun on a computer desk in the house. So someone who wants to take the step of educating their child about gun safety fails to secure firearms in any way.
because you're scared. Because you're scared for your life. You're scared that if I don't have this gun next to me, then somebody could run up in here and kill us all. And that's what my client, and he didn't. My client, his words were, I live in a very dangerous neighborhood. and he told me where he kept his guns. And as I said, he is a bigger man. It'd be difficult for him to get to the closet and things of that nature. If we're saying he's more culpable in this situation, then at least I don't believe a tether is necessary. It's not like they were taking they were taking these guns out. It's not like they were taking these guns out and waving them at people or trying to bring harm to people. Uh, I don't believe we don't have any indication that they are going to be a flight risk. They are going to be a flight risk, and just because the mother had knowledge of the guns, everybody's not taught that same lesson. And honestly, Your Honor, I never seen a commercial for the free gun safes. Now I'm pretty sure there are a bunch of commercials, and that might not be the type of TV that I'm watching. But me personally, I never seen that commercial.
Okay,
Even though most
let's
likely
call
they
Mr.
exist.
Gravel's case. I get that you want me to reconsider the bond in LeBlanc, and I will do that. But let's call Mr. Gravel's case because you're making argument that pertains to his case too.
Right.
So now calling People versus Timothy Gravel. Sir, state your name, please.
Timothy Gravel, Your Honor.
Thank you.
And yes, Your Honor.
Hi, counsel.
Brandon Byrd on behalf of Timothy Gravel. My client waives his right to the formal reading, was advised his constitutional rights, and will stand mute.
Thank you, counsel. Court notes formal reading has been waived. Interest in not guilty plea on your client's behalf. We have heard some argument as to bond. You're free to go ahead and make your argument as to Mr. Gravel, specifically Mr. Byrd. Go ahead.
Okay, and I'll try and keep this as specific to Mr. Gravel as possible, Your Honor.
Well, if I hear something I consider in LeBlanc, then I'll just make a record of that, but go ahead.
Thank you, Your Honor. 31-year-old lifelong resident, lived with a significant other and his son. Out of 31 years of life, no prior criminal history, no probation or parole, no pending cases. Unfortunately, he was unemployed, a stay-at-home father. That child that's unfortunately deceased right now was his everything. It was his life. And that revolved around. Now, I'm sorry, I did bring a lot of what was going on with Mr. Gravel into Mr. Blanc's argument, and but unfortunately, I just thought it was the best way to explain it. But we got the person that allegedly was in control of these guns, Your Honor. One was under. I guess we had the shotgun. We had another gun on the desk. We had one in between the mattress. This wasn't. First of all, my client said I had a real rough upbringing. Been living on my own since I've been 16 years old. I'm just writing some of the statements down. I've been living on my own since I've been 16 years old. Didn't really have a loving family. He was trying to provide that loving family to his son. I understand that the child showed interest in these guns, and I guess that's the part when he showed the child his guns about trying to educate his child. He probably was trying to hope that child would stay away from these guns. And a lot of us believe our kids. A lot of us believe our children won't do these type of things. But it's difficult to understand that sometimes it's difficult for us to understand that a child might grab a gun or things like that, especially after we try and talk to them so many times about them and educate them. Now, he indicates to us that they live in a terrible neighborhood. As you can see, my client's a bigger individual, Your Honor. It's difficult to get to your gun. It's difficult to get to a gun, unlock it, and when something's really going on. Somebody could come in your house at any moment. I know I was a victim of a home invasion when I was a kid, and understand how fast that could happen. So I have a complete understanding. I have a complete understanding of what people go through and the difficulties you have to juggle, especially when you had children. I'm not saying I'm not saying mistakes weren't made. And I'm not trying to call it a mistake to downplay the situation that we have a dead child involved in this situation. But that's these two individuals dead child in these situations. And as I stated, nobody in this situation is hurting more than them. They're not trying to run, and even if they did, they don't have any money to. They don't have any money to. They're not by being held in the county jail, they're not going to be able to bury their child. This isn't because they maliciously this death was maliciously done by them to their child. This wasn't because it was purposely done to their child. They really thought they were doing everything they can to protect their child, and provide for their child by how both of them operated. Now I understand we brought up the reasonable person standard, but it depends on what person that you're talking to. When you're talking about reasonableness, and it depends on what person you're dealing with. We just can't put a thin line, and everybody hasn't been through the same situations in life as the next person. Now, I'm not saying that it was a good decision to leave those guns. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that at all. But what I am saying, if we're basing this bond off of the two major conditions of bond, flight risk and threat to the community. I don't believe that these two are a flight risk or a threat to the community. They didn't have those guns to be a threat to the community. They had those guns to protect themselves. Unfortunately, when you live under some sort of conditions and you make a certain amount of money, a lot of times it puts us in neighborhoods where other people are living like that, but different different things take place in those neighborhoods due to the conditions of poverty. Which I'm not making excuses why that should happen either, but I'm just asking for can we get a high personal bond for these matters? Allow these two to bury their child.
I understand your argument, Mr. Byrd. You've advocated very well on behalf of your clients and made strong arguments. All right. Sergeant Brassfield, is there anything you need? Not the facts of the case in terms of prior convictions, failure to show up for court, anything like that. Is there anything I need to know about Mr. Gravel?
Mr. Gravel has a minor criminal history up until this major incident. So there's nothing else as far as what you're speaking of other than the facts you're already pretty much aware of surrounding this matter.
All right. Thank you. This 5-year-old child was a member of our community too, and deserves and is deserving of protection. And while he is deceased, the level of carelessness exhibited here does cause the court concern for failure, for danger to the community. It is baffling to me. And I hear your arguments, Mr. Byrd. But to have 3 firearms chambered and accessible to a 5-year-old who has shown interest in them and been allowed to handle them by his father, for those to have been left accessible and chambered, exhibits a level of carelessness that just causes the court concern about safety for the community in terms of the gun handling. I am setting Mr. Gravel's bond at $50,000 cash surety. And it's not my desire to inflict further pain upon people who I am sure are already suffering. But I do have a job to do. And it does cause me concern for community safety to hear that there are this many firearms fully accessible, chambered, accessible to a child. $50,000 cash surety, which is lower than the bond I was going to impose based upon your arguments, Mr. Byrd. GPS to work only. They make the bond. November 21st for probable cause conference at 9 a.m. November 27th for preliminary examination at 9 a.m. All right. Thank you.
Thank you for hearing me out.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you.